time to change tack and investigate my mother's paternal line, the Dunns. We have to date been tracing my father's paternal line, the Plampins, all the way back from 1495 up to my grandfather's death in 1963. We will revisit my father's life once we receive his military records. Unlike my father's paternal line, which we can trace to our 12th great-grandfather, my mother's recorded paternal line starts with our third great-grandfather, William Dunn. We know the name of his father, Samuel Dunn, and his mother, Mary Lowe, but that is all we can unearth of his parents. So the known story of the Dunns starts with the birth of William Dunn in 1790 in the small village of Columpton, Devon, about 11 miles northeast of Exeter. You can see from this map that Columpton sits in mid-Devon. Its position gave it an important role in opening up Devon's road infrastructure. Before 1753, Devon's roads were in a poor state. So turnpike trusts were set up, toll booths, to raise money for building and maintaining important transport routes. Columpton was a central point for four of these turnpike trusts: Exeter, Honiton, Tiverton, and Columpton. Columpton's main street, seen here, was significantly influenced by being a turnpike road. Similar to the motorway service stations of today, the White Hart pub formed a crucial staging post in this network, providing accommodation, stabling for horses, and refreshment for travellers and mail coach drivers. The other thing of note is in Columpton is its position beside the Colne River, the largest tributary of the Exe River. Apart from providing a beautiful scenic environment as well as essential habitat, this river has powered numerous mills from the medieval period through to the 20th century. Its presence was the historic driver of the prosperous woolen cloth industry from 1500 to 1700, and later the paper industry. Cold Harbour Mill, just out of Columpton Centre, is one of the oldest still working woolen mills in UK. So while Devon has a sleepy image, the village our William was born into was a busy little place of trade, set within growing industrialisation across England. Talk on the street would have been about the recent French Revolution, which now created an unsettling tension between the people and the English monarchy. The people's acceptance of the monarch was being tested with George III on the throne. George was popularly termed Mad George III due to his infamous days-long rants and foaming at the mouth. With hindsight and with more compassion, we now recognize his condition as bipolar. In another challenge to authority, the talk would have been full again of the mutiny on the Bounty. The Bounty was termed Her Majesty's armed vessel to signify she worked on official business across the Empire. Just the year before, disaffected seamen had taken control of the ship and set the unpopular captain, Lieutenant William Bligh, with just 18 of his loyal men, adrift in the ocean on the ship's launch, an almost certain death sentence. The next year, the year our William was born, and against all odds, Bligh landed the small launch back on English shores after a mighty journey of 4,000 miles to safety. We don't know for sure what work our William took up as a young man, but I'm making an educated guess that he was a carrier, simply because this is confirmed in a later census, and because of what happened when he was 26. Carriers were like shopping agents. They bought goods and added a penny or two when selling to villagers. The carrier's horse-drawn cart was often the only way to dispatch bulky parcels from the town to the surrounding agricultural villages. They also served as public transport, like a country bus. They worked to a schedule and were an essential service before railways arrived. The next record we have of our William is Christmas Eve, 1816, when William gets married at 26 years old. William chose Sarah Milton as his bride, a 32-year-old who lived just 50 minutes gentle drive from Cullompton in a little village called Willand. We can imagine young William doing his delivery rounds and getting to know Sarah, first as a customer and then as a romantic interest. The wedding took place in beautiful Willand at St. Mary's Church. 4 children followed in reasonably quick succession. Firstborn Elizabeth was born in Willand, exactly a year after their parents' Christmas Eve wedding. Firstborn son William followed 2 years later, and we can see from his birth records that the family welcomed him in Sidmouth. This is the first record we have of our Dunn line being in Sidmouth, which will become the focus for the Dunn family for the next 4 generations. What prompted this move? The family welcomed more children in Sidmouth. A year later, second daughter Maria arrived, followed by another girl, Harriet. 5 years later. And at last, here comes our great-great-grandfather John in 1829, when his father William was 39 and his mum Sarah was 45. Here is our direct link by birth to the delightful Sidmouth. Census taking has started in England in 1801. But in 1841, 25 years after William and Sarah's marriage, a key change was made to census taking. This was in response to concerns about rapid population growth and abilities to feed the nation. The 1841 census was the first time the head of the household was given a form to fill out on behalf of everyone in the dwelling. This form recorded the names, ages, sex, occupations, and address of everyone in the household, though ages over 15 were sometimes rounded down to the nearest 5, just to confuse people researching their families today. From this census, we can see the family are living in Back Street, which was colloquially known as Post Office Street, as the post office was located there. Today the street is officially named Old Fore Street. You can see from this map it's a short little street that runs into the esplanade along the seafront. Why is this important? Well, the census confirms our guess that our William, now 55, worked as a carrier, moving goods and possibly people about. Proximity to where his services were needed would have been important. The family's move to Sidmouth and their home location can be credibly explained by looking back at quaint Sidmouth's history and the major change that took place after the French Revolution. Before that momentous social uprising, Sidmouth had operated for centuries as a quiet little fishing village with under 1,000 residents. After the Revolution, British nobles started to avoid visits to France and needed somewhere else to spend their summers. They started looking at alternatives that offered a coastal location and a milder climate to the rest of Britain. In 1819, our William was 30 and has just brought his growing family to settle in Sidmouth. In that same year, Lord Gwydir invited George IV to stay with him at his home, Woodlands Cottage. This is now the site of the Woodlands Hotel. George IV was the heir to the throne, being the eldest son of the monarch, Mad King George III. In reality, George IV was ruling England under the title Prince Regent, as his father had by now been completely taken over by his debilitating mental illness. The Prince Regent holidaying in Sidmouth immediately brought the village to the interest of royals as a feasible place for a holiday in England. The following year, Prince Regent's brother, Edward, took a winter break in Sidmouth with his small family. The holiday was designed to boost the health of his wife Victoria, who was recovering from the birth of her first child, named after her. Edward and his family stayed at Woodbrick Glen in Sidmouth, now the Royal Glen Hotel. During the family's stay, a local lad was out shooting pigeons in nearby fields. He couldn't have been a great shot because one of his bullets flew through the nursery window at Woodbrick Glen, narrowly missing the royal infant Victoria. This little baby, a lucky girl, would grow up to become the indomitable Queen Victoria. In a way, this incident, though an accident, is a strange foreshadowing to the 8 assassination attempts she would experience in her long reign as queen. Today you can still see where this bullet pierced the nursery window at Woodbrick Glen. It is marked by a coloured pane of glass. You can stay in this very room, called the Princess Room. Unfortunately, Edward caught a bad cold in early January while on holiday in Sidmouth. His condition worsened following a long walk in chilly weather, and he died of pneumonia at Woodbrick, aged 52. Edward's body was taken by road on a funeral procession all the way from Sidmouth to Windsor Castle, where he was buried. People lined the streets all the way. This 150-mile journey took 3 weeks due to the extreme winter weather. In a sad time for the family, Edward died just 6 days before his father, Mad King George, passed, in what was probably a blessing. Edward's visit to Sidmouth and the publicity around it cemented the start of Sidmouth and other nearby places becoming popular with London socialites. This prompted extensive new building in the Georgian and Regency styles. Elegant villas, terraced houses, and hotels were built to accommodate wealthy visitors attracted to the sea air. Many of these buildings form the core of the town's charm today. When you stay in Sidmouth, you can feel like a royal. We can now better imagine the Sidmouth our William found himself in. It would have been a place of two realities. The one, a genteel watering place for the gentry, and a place of gentle convalescence for moneyed invalids with weak lungs. On the other, a busy place of work, keeping up with the demands of its visitors. We can imagine that our William had plentiful work, servicing the needs of the gentry. As a carrier, his job was essential, yet his social status would have been marginal. He would have been associated with traders and travellers who lived on the road, deemed less than respectable by conventional society. William died the year following the 1842 census at 55. This was young when life expectancy for men in England had now lifted to 72, thanks to a temporary dip in epidemics across the country, as well as better wages giving people more nutritious diets. But there were plenty of ways to die. Infectious diseases like flu and diarrhea disease still caused early deaths, as did bronchitis and pneumonia. Work accidents were a major cause of early deaths too. Jobs involving horses and carts were particularly risky, and more so in Devon with its hilly landscape and rudimentary roads. In the absence of a formal death certificate, we won't know for certain what killed William. Our William was a pioneering ancestor who anchored our family in Sidmouth for 4 generations. He's laid to rest in the parish church of St. Giles and Nicholas, located on Church Street, Sidmouth.